If you struggle with flare when shooting video, you're gonna want to watch this because today we're going to talk about the Tilta Mini Matte Box. So when you're filming outdoors, especially on a sunny day, you get two big issues. When your shutter speed's limited by your frame rate, your aperture's set for the depth of field you want, and your ISO's as low as it can go, you can still get overexposed shots. And if the light source, i.e. the sun, is shining right into your lens, then you're probably gonna get flare. For the first issue, the only real solution is neutral density. I'm a big fan of variable ND filters, and I have several of them from Polar Pro, Moment, and B&W. And all of these are excellent filters, but neutral density alone doesn't solve the issue of flare. So today we're going to be finishing up the Panasonic G80 rig with the Tilta Mini Matte Box. Here's the box, and we'll take a look at what's inside. And this takes ages to shake off, so damn, that's some good suction. So inside we've got the Mini Matte Box itself, we've got some adapters for different filter sizes, a couple of Allen keys, and a couple of bits for attaching it to a rail or a Tilta camera cage. I know you want to see this first, so we'll look at the other bits after. So the main part of this appears to be plastic, but we've got a metal frame around the back and a metal frame on top. We have a cold shoe underneath, we have a couple more cold shoes on top for adding a light or a microphone, and in between these is the locking mechanism for the flag, which is here on the front. There's only one flag on the Tilta Mini Matte Box to block light coming from above. This is what stops the light shining right into your lens. When we unlock this and lift it up, we can see the big round hole for the lens to stick through, and there are ridges around the front edge which hold a single 8-inch thick 4x5.65-inch cinema filter. I've had this set of Schneiders for about 9 years. I actually won them in one of the Twitter contests on Creative Live during Vincent Laforette's class back in 2011. I've got 1, 2, 3 and 4 stop varieties, but so far I've only really used these for photography to bring shutter speed down below flash sync, where I've had a bit more control over the scene. I can take my time to set things up, and I'm only looking to shoot one image or one scene a bunch of times. So I've been using them with a Cokin Z Pro holder, and if I need a flag, I just gaffer tape some cinefoil over the top to make a shade. I've got a 77mm step-up ring on this lens because all my filters are 77mm, so we might as well just use 77mm for the matte box as well. So I'll get these out of the way. So here is the 77mm adapter ring, and it has a thread on the back that just screws into the front, and then on the front of this we've got a big wide plate for this to attach to. Because this is just a standard 77mm thread, or at least this one is, these are 67, 72 and 82mm, you can actually stack another screw-on filter behind here if you want to. Now, yeah, you could put a variable ND in there, but what's the point? You're going to put ND in here. You could also use a polarizer, but the problem you've got is that when you rotate the polarizer, this is going to rotate, and if this is locked, this is also going to rotate. So you'd need to unlock this, rotate your filter, then lock this back on again, and there isn't really a lot of room behind there. Stacking on this is designed primarily for things you don't have to adjust, like Tiffin's Black Pro mist filters, where you just screw it on and there's nothing to adjust. I'm not using one of those, so we've just got this straight on. The Mini Matte Box itself just slots straight over the top and screws on. A little thumb screw here tightens down and it just locks into place, and that's it, it's done. So with this attached, you can see the threads on the front for slipping in your 4x5.65 filter, and you'll notice down in this corner that there's a little pin locking mechanism to hold your filter in place. This was one of the big issues when I was just using the Cokin holder for photography with the Schneider filters. So this is the Cokin Z Pro holder, and you'll see that there are pins on it, but this is designed for 100mm filters. And it's designed for thin 100mm filters, not these thick chunky ones. If I put this in, you'll see that the pins do hit it, but then there's a gap at the bottom, and if I'm using a wide angle lens, then this is going to stick out. So I have to push them down to get my filter all the way in. And if I've got it mounted that way, the way you'd normally mount a Cokin holder on your camera, gravity does its thing and eventually the filter just falls out. So I have to mount it that way, which is good because, you know, if the field of view of your lens is wider that way anyway, so if I put it on sideways and it's a wide lens, it's gonna have neutral density across more of the frame. But yeah, this isn't an ideal solution, and now that I'm shooting more video, I figured it was time to get an actual matte box. So let's pull this out of here, and we can just slide this in here. And if you notice this little pin down here in the corner, you might not be able to see it on the camera, but if I push that all the way in, there's that little pin sticking out. And to remove it, you just pull this back and slide your filter off. But that's it. It's that simple. It's all set up. It's all done. So let's close down the flag for now, pack this in the bag, and we'll head outside and see what kind of a difference it makes. So as we've got a rare sunny September day in Scotland, I've come out into the backyard with the matte box and a variable ND, so you can see why these can be so useful when shooting outdoors in bright conditions. I've come outside with the flariest of flary lenses, the Helios 44-2 58mm f2 lens, but immediately you can see the problems with the exposure. It's well blown out at standard video settings with a 180-degree shutter rule at 50th of a second. Now the obvious answer to this is to add variable ND, so what we're going to do is we're going to add the Moment 2 to 5 stop variable ND in front of the lens and stop it down to where we get a good exposure. So the sun has slightly disappeared behind clouds for now, although you can see when we add the variable ND filter and get a good exposure, it's still pretty low contrast, which means that we're still getting some flaring into the lens from the light in the sky. You can see as I cover up the lens how the flare disappears and we actually get some reasonable contrast in the shot. You can also see when we cover up the lens to reduce the flare, the exposure goes down, which means we need to adjust our variable ND filter again in order to get a good exposure while we're preventing flare from entering the lens. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the variable ND filter off and we're going to put the Tilta Mini Matte Box on. So with the matte box on, you can see that we're still well overexposed, but none of it is due to flare. If we speed up the shutter to bring the exposure down, you'll see what I mean. Right now we're at a 640th of a second to get a good exposure. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a 3-stop ND filter over the lens, which should bring us down to about an 80th of a second, and then we're going to just tweak the last little bit with the ISO. Now that we've got the Tilta Mini Matte Box on along with the Schneider 4x5.65 ND filter, you can see that we've got a good exposure and we don't have the flare issue that we had before. In fact, you can see that as I move the flag up and down to let the light in or block it out, you can see exactly how it's affecting the shot. The Tilta Mini Matte Box isn't the only matte box out there. There are a lot more expensive and advanced ones for different camera setups and camera rigs. But if you're run and gun and you're carrying a lightweight setup round, it's ideal. It connects to your camera using a standard lens filter thread. It's lightweight, so it's not putting a lot of strain on that thread. It doesn't block light coming from all sides, but it blocks the majority of it, which is coming from the top, and it holds the filters really, really well. So in my experience so far, it's been absolutely fantastic. If you like this video, consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more. If you have any questions about the Tilta Mini Matte Box or the filters that I'm using, or anything else really, drop them down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.